Mr. Morris, what in hell goes on in New York? That's a line from the musical 1776. But after what New York Attorney General Letitia James did today, it's probably a more appropriate question for the times in which we find ourselves. Do you wonder what I'm talking about? Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this in just 1 second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. New York Attorney General Letitia James is starting to make moves to seize Donald Trump's assets, in effect, basically enforcing Judge Arthur Engoron's ruling that Trump must pay $454 million plus interest as time goes by from the date of the initial ruling. So let's take a look at what's going on in the news and give some commentary about the whole thing, because Lord only knows I've got a lot to say about it. We'll start with thehill.com, and we read the following. Headline: New York Attorney General takes steps towards seizing Trump's assets. Article written by Ella Lee. We have the following. The New York Attorney General's office filed judgments in Westchester County, New York, where former President Donald Trump's golf resort and private estate known as Seven Springs is located, a first step towards seizing the asset. The judgments were filed with the Westchester County Clerk's Office March 6th. Public records show Judge Arthur Engoron, who oversaw the sweeping civil fraud trial against Trump and his business, formally entered his multi-million-dollar judgment just over a week earlier. Engoron ruled that Trump, the Trump Organization, and top executives, including two of Trump's sons, Eric and Donald Jr., were liable for fraud after conspiring to alter the former president's net worth for tax and insurance benefits. He ordered them to pay $464 million plus interest in total. Trump has just 4 days to find the cash to post a surety bond for his portion of the judgment, a whopping $454 million plus interest, before New York Attorney General Letitia James can begin seizing his assets. If Trump posts the bond, the judgment would automatically be paused while the former president appeals Engoron's ruling. James has said that if Trump does not have the funds to pay off the judgment, her office intends to seek, quote, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court. Okay, let's get into this. Just by way of a little bit of background, to give you an idea of the property that Letitia James is in the process of trying to get her hands on, this is from the New York Post, and this gives you some idea of what this property is like in Westchester County. 370-acre Seven Springs estate and golf course Letitia James aims to seize. Article written by Mary Jacob. This is just some pictures of it. But it's basically 60 rooms, 15 bedrooms, and it is an absolutely gorgeous piece of property if you've never seen this before. Just roll through here and take a look at some of the pictures. Absolutely amazing. Originally owned in 1919 by Eugene Meyer, former publisher of the Washington Post, the Trump Organization got their hands on it in 96. The estate was crafted over 5 years by a labor of 500 Italian masons and other artisans from across the globe. Absolutely gorgeous. Looks like, according to the article, purchased for $7.5 million in 96. Trump's plans for an 18-hole golf course faced fierce opposition from the neighboring towns. And despite years of effort, Trump ultimately abandoned the golf course project, leaving Seven Springs as a cherished family sanctuary. Absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And Letitia James is now starting efforts to get her hands on it. So, how exactly did we get here, and what exactly is going on? Well, it kind of started back in February with Engoron's ruling, but things are starting to reach a head. Another article from thehill.com. This was on Monday. Trump's lawyers securing a full $454 million bond, quote, practically impossible in New York fraud case. Article written by Lauren Forza. We read the following. Former President Trump's lawyers indicated in a court filing Monday that he is unable to secure the full $464 million bond in his New York fraud case, an endeavor one insurance broker called a practical impossibility. Attorneys for Trump and his co-defendants in the case said in a filing with the state's Intermediate Appeals Court that it was impossible for them to secure the full amount of an appeal bond. Quote, defendants' ongoing diligent efforts have proven that a bond in the judgment's full amount is a practical impossibility, the lawyers wrote, citing an affidavit signed by an insurance broker who testified for Trump during the trial last year. Trump's attorneys claim that have spent hours negotiating with one of the largest insurance companies in the world and have approached 30 companies to back the bond, efforts they said they were pursuing before the judgment was made. Quote, the amount of the judgment with interest exceeds $464 million, and very few bonding companies will consider a bond of anything approaching that magnitude, Trump's lawyers wrote. Trump was ordered to pay a staggering $454 million earlier this year in a verdict issued by Judge Arthur Engoron. Trump is currently appealing the judgment, but the total amount will continue to gain interest while that process plays out. Okay, that was Monday. Well, on Wednesday, the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, responded. Going back to another article, we read the following. Again, this is from thehill.com. New York Attorney General urges appeals court to make Trump pay the full bond. Article written by Ella Lee. Again, we read the following. The New York Attorney General's office urged a state appeals court to make former President Trump pay a full bond before pausing the multi-million-dollar judgment in his civil fraud case. The state's filing follows claims by Trump's legal team Monday that the former president is unable to secure the full bond due despite his diligent efforts. An insurance broker who testified for Trump during the fraud trial last year called the effort a practical impossibility in a sworn affidavit attached to the filing. Quote, defendants' new factual allegations and legal arguments fail to support their extraordinary request for a stay based on a bond or deposit of less than a fourth of the money judgment amount, Dennis Fan, Senior Assistant Solicitor General in the Attorney General's office, said in a court filing. Reading a little further into the article, Trump alone was ordered to pay $454 million after a New York judge determined he conspired to inflate his assets for tax and insurance benefits and was liable for fraud after the state sued Trump in 2022 over deceitful business practices. With interest piling on an additional $112,000 each day Trump doesn't pay, the former president owes the state about $457 million as of Wednesday. Obtaining a bond would automatically pause the judgment's enforcement while he appeals, but to do so, Trump must post collateral covering 120% of the judgment, or more than $557 million, his lawyer said in a court filing. Instead, Trump has asked the court to accept a bond of $100 million. Quote, very few bonding companies will consider a bond of anything approaching that magnitude, but the Attorney General's office asserted that's not true. Fan argued that there is no ruling limiting Trump to a single bond from an assurity for a single assurity from a judgment amount, and that the former president could divide the multi-million-dollar bond across multiple sureties to limit, quote, any individual surety's risk. He told the court that the insurance broker cited in Trump's motion, Gary Giletti, was found to lack credibility by Judge Arthur Engoron, who oversaw the fraud trial, due to an ongoing personal and professional relationship with Trump. The state lawyer also pushed back against Trump's assertion his many properties can't be put up as collateral, contending that the use of real estate as collateral is hardly impossible. Quote, defendants' allegations thus boiled down to the proposition that sureties has been unwilling to accept Mr. Trump's real estate holdings as collateral in this case, yet defendants supply no documentary evidence that demonstrates precisely what real property they offered to sureties, on what terms the properties were offered, and precisely why the sureties were unwilling to accept the assets. As far as the court can infer, sureties may have refused to accept defendants' specific holdings as collateral because using Mr. Trump's real estate will generally need, quote, a property appraisal, and his holdings are not nearly as valuable as the defendant claims, he continued. All right, that sets it up. Let's get into this. It is absolutely amazing to me how far this has gotten. We are now out of the realm of the stupid and we're walking around in the territory of the insane. Now, remember back to how all this started. Basically, Letitia James, as the Attorney General of New York, brought a charge against Trump saying, hey, you committed fraud. You inflated the value of your assets to obtain better terms. But the problem is, this was from years ago, number one. Number two, Trump paid back every loan that he made with these companies or was made for him. The insurance companies and the banks are not complaining. They made interest off of it. The state of New York made money off of it by taxing the banks. Nobody is injured in this process. Yet Letitia James, in her righteous indignation, is using New York law as a way to try to punish Donald Trump. And for what? What basically amounts to a victimless, and I'm not even going to use the word, there's no crime in this. Who's been hurt? There's no injured party. And yet Judge Engoron, who we lovingly refer to as Engoron the moron not only hands down a fine to Trump and the Trump organization, but he hands down something so egregiously over the top that there's a very distinct possibility that New York State and the New York judge is in violation of Trump's Eighth Amendment rights against excessive punishment. And frankly, if Trump's smart, he'll take this one up the line and just see how far it can go, even if it takes it all the way to the Supreme Court. Because basically that's what New York State is doing here. They're trying to strip Trump of businesses and money that he has spent years cultivating. And now, because he's having such trouble obtaining an surety bond, Letitia James is already making moves and started making moves apparently days after Engoron handed down his ruling to try and get her hands on Trump's properties. We're reaching a very, very sad point. I mean, look, if you don't like Donald Trump, and I'm addressing this next comment to progressive and liberals out there, you don't like Donald Trump, fine. You don't like his politics, fine. But be very careful of what you're doing here, because you're setting in motion a Frankenstein's monster that if it turns the wrong way, it will come after you. Now, lest you don't believe me, let me let you hear it from somebody who is a New York businessman himself, and by the way, is no friend of Donald Trump. I want to play a comment made by Kevin O'Leary, who's the chairman of O'Leary Ventures. This was when he appeared on Fox a couple of days ago, and I'm going to play this in its entirety. I'm not going to stop it. And keep in mind, this man is no fan of Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, take a listen to this.
But more importantly, the message about the American brand. You think about America, the reason this is the number one economy on earth is that we have laws and we have due process and we have property rights. It attracts foreign capital from all around the world. All of that is being shaken to the core here. The concept of seizing assets in 30 days on a bond number that's never been issued. No insurance bond company's ever issued anything near this. So there was no chance it was going to happen. And only giving 30 days notice and time, that's a really bad message. And I think New Yorkers should think well past Trump. Whether he's president or not, or whether this attorney general is gone in 4 years or not, it's irrelevant. This is case setting against the American brand. The most stable country on earth, anywhere, to put capital to work over a long period of time, particularly in real estate, is the United States of America. This is an assault on what we believe to be core. And I find it extraordinary. I think it's very troubling. It has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump at this point, in my view, and it is completely bipartisan. This is an attack on America. And I don't know how you can look at it any other way. And as an investor, and I know plenty of investors are completely disturbed by this, but I mean, no one is going to put any money to work in New York in these amounts until this thing settles down. The whole world is watching, and everybody's waiting for one thing we haven't got yet: adult supervision. Where is it? Where are the adults in this crazy narrative? Certainly there's got to be adult supervision at some point. And I understand, you know, the war going on here and all the political yada, yada, woof, woof, woof. But we need an adult in the room now. This is the United States of America under siege.
You know, I could sit here and rant and rave all night long, but he said it better than I ever will. So, again, for you liberals and you progressives out there that are cheering this on, just be very careful, because this Frankenstein's monster that you're cheering on to take out your political opponent today will come after you tomorrow. You're basically setting up the precedent where American law and American courts can be used to seize the assets and the businesses of people that you don't like politically. You may not be able to beat them at the ballot box, and in an attempt to make sure you don't have to deal with them anymore, you'll strip them of everything they worked a lifetime to own. Look, it's like I said, you don't like Trump, that's fine. Take Trump out of the equation, put in the name of anybody else you want to, and ask yourself this question. For all your hatred of that individual, can you really look at what's going on here and say it's fair? In your mind, as a liberal or a progressive, you can justify this. You can live with it. You can go to sleep at night. Well, I'm sorry. Liberal, progressive, conservative, whatever you want to call it, there ain't no way that you can look at this and say it's fair. And by the way, every other American's coming to the same conclusion. Black, white, Latino, they're looking at what's being done to Donald Trump and they're realizing, man, this just ain't fair. And it's one of the reasons why, at this point anyway, he may be on his way to a second term in the White House. So just let that sink in. But that's what I think about it all. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new material is coming out, be it a video or a live stream. Number three, please leave a comment below. Number four, share the video around. And finally, give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I will see you next time.